It started with a guaranteed win tip, then turned into a scam that took millions from people chasing easy profits in sports betting. The message promised insider information, fixed matches, or high-confidence picks that could not lose. At first, small wins were shown or fabricated, creating the belief that the system actually worked. Victims were then asked to pay for premium access, VIP groups, or higher-value betting tips. Some paid a few hundred, others spent thousands, believing they were buying certainty in an uncertain game. Globally, these scams have generated millions in losses, often operating through messaging apps and private groups. When losses began, new tips were offered to recover money, keeping victims engaged and paying more. What looked like expert advice was actually a system designed to turn hope into repeated financial loss. By the late 2010s and early 2020s, sports betting scams had expanded rapidly alongside the growth of online betting platforms and tipster communities. These scams were often run through Telegram channels, WhatsApp groups, and social media pages presenting themselves as professional betting analysts. Operators claimed access to insider information, fixed matches, or statistical systems that guaranteed consistent wins. Victims were drawn in by screenshots of winning bets, large payouts, and testimonials that appeared real but were often fabricated. The audience ranged from casual bettors to individuals actively seeking additional income through sports predictions. In many cases, the same structure appeared across multiple groups, suggesting organized networks rather than independent tipsters. Reports linked to agencies like the OAIC showed growing complaints about paid betting tip scams. Globally, losses ranged from a few $100s to tens of thousands per individual, depending on continued participation. By the time users joined these groups, they believed they were accessing expert insight rather than entering a controlled scam system. The entry point was usually a direct message, social media ad, or public post showing recent wins with detailed betting slips. These posts created urgency by highlighting limited-time opportunities or exclusive access to upcoming matches. Users were invited to join free groups first, where small tips were shared to build initial credibility. Some of these early picks were correct or selectively presented, reinforcing the belief that the system worked. Once trust was established, users were introduced to paid tiers offering guaranteed wins or insider-level predictions. Payments were framed as one-time fees or subscriptions, often ranging from $100 to over $1,000. The communication style remained confident and authoritative, discouraging doubt or external verification. Because users had already seen apparent success, the decision to pay felt like a logical next step. By the time payment was made, the user had already transitioned from observer to participant in the system. Once inside paid groups, the structure shifted into a controlled cycle where tips were released with precise timing and strict instructions. Users were told exactly how much to bet, when to place it, and sometimes even which platforms to use. Early wins were often highlighted heavily, while losses were downplayed or reframed as part of a larger strategy. In some cases, different users received different tips on the same match, ensuring that some would always report success. Screenshots of winning bets were continuously shared to maintain confidence and encourage continued betting. When losses occurred, users were told to increase their stakes on the next guaranteed pick to recover previous losses. This created a loop where users invested more money over time, believing they were following a proven system. Behind the scenes, there was no real predictive advantage, only selective presentation and manipulation of outcomes. By this stage, users were no longer evaluating results objectively. They were following instructions within the system. As users continued, the scam escalated by introducing higher-tier packages promising access to fixed matches or insider-level certainty. These offers were framed as rare opportunities, often limited to a small group to increase perceived value. Prices increased significantly, sometimes reaching several $1,000s for a single tip or short-term access. Users who had already experienced partial success were more likely to upgrade, believing they were close to consistent profits. When high-value bets lost, explanations were provided, such as last-minute changes, referee decisions, or external interference. In some cases, new recovery plans were introduced, requiring additional payments to regain losses. The communication remained controlled, maintaining authority while preventing users from stepping back and reassessing. Reports showed individuals cycling through multiple paid tiers, each promising to recover previous losses. By this stage, the outcome was no longer tied to betting results, but to continued participation in the system. The first clear doubts appeared when users tracked results over time and noticed that losses were more consistent than wins. Some attempted to verify the legitimacy of fixed matches or insider claims, only to find no credible evidence. Others questioned why guaranteed bets continued to fail despite repeated assurances. In many cases, scammers responded by shifting blame, suggesting users had not followed instructions correctly or needed higher-tier access. Requests for refunds were typically ignored, delayed, or met with new offers to recover losses through additional payments. Communication often became less responsive once users stopped paying or began challenging the system. Authorities like the OAIC issued warnings highlighting these exact patterns in betting tip scams. By the time users recognized the structure, financial losses had already accumulated over multiple transactions. What initially appeared to be expert guidance began to unravel into a pattern of repeated loss and controlled messaging. The scam was typically uncovered when victims reported losses to banks, consumer agencies, or law enforcement after repeated failed bets and payments. Complaints revealed consistent patterns: paid access groups, fabricated wins, and ongoing requests for additional fees. Agencies like the JCTC and international partners identified these as coordinated betting fraud operations. Investigations showed how scammers recycled the same content, rebranding groups and creating new channels as older ones were exposed. Digital analysis revealed manipulated screenshots, edited betting slips, and selective result reporting used to maintain credibility. Financial tracking indicated that payments were often collected through multiple accounts or digital wallets, making recovery difficult. Some operations were linked to larger networks running multiple scam types simultaneously across different platforms. Despite enforcement efforts, similar groups continued to appear, using the same structure with minor variations. What appeared to be individual tipsters was ultimately exposed as a repeatable system designed to convert belief in certainty into financial loss. What made this scam effective was the illusion of certainty in an environment that is inherently unpredictable. Users were not just buying tips, they were buying the idea that risk could be removed from betting. The system created early belief, reinforced it with selective wins, and sustained it through controlled messaging. Losses were reframed as temporary, while wins were amplified to maintain confidence. Because users had already invested money and belief, stepping away became increasingly difficult. Investigations showed that the same structure was reused across different sports, leagues, and platforms. This allowed the scam to scale while remaining convincing to new audiences. The financial impact came not from a single bet, but from repeated payments and continued participation. The pattern remains active today, evolving with new channels, but relying on the same core mechanism of selling certainty that does not exist.